Karen lived in a quiet neighborhood where everyone seemed to know each other. She took her role in the Homeowners Association, HOA, very seriously. Every week, she walked through the streets, inspecting houses and making sure people followed the rules. Karen believed that a well-kept neighborhood reflected not just on the homes but on the pride of the community itself. With her sharp eyes and strong opinions, Karen often had something to say. If she spotted an overgrown lawn or a mailbox that was peeling paint, she would jot it down for future HOA discussions. Many neighbors respected her dedication, but others thought she went too far. One thing Karen couldn't stand was outrageous colors on houses. She appreciated classic designs and muted tones that blended in nicely with nature. So, when she noticed her neighbor painting their house a bright coral color, her jaw dropped. To her, it looked loud and distracting, eye-searing, as she put it. This time, Karen felt it was only right to step in and report the house to the HOA. She imagined how this striking hue would disrupt the harmony of their peaceful street. With determination in her heart, she wrote up her concerns, feeling proud that she was standing up for what she believed was best for the community. Little did she know, her actions would lead to surprising consequences that no one could have predicted. As Karen continued her neighborhood inspection, she turned onto Maple Lane and stopped dead in her tracks. There it was, a house that had been recently transformed into a dazzling shade of coral. The bright color seemed to leap out at her, practically screaming for attention. To her eyes, it was not a tasteful hue, but an overwhelming statement that clashed with the more muted tones of the surrounding homes. The freshly painted exterior glinted under the midday sun, radiating a glow that felt more like a spotlight than a warm welcome. Karen felt her heart race as she imagined how the vibrant coral could distract from the classic charm of their peaceful street. How could anyone choose something so eye-searing, she muttered to herself, shaking her head in disbelief. Though the homeowner had clearly put effort into their new look, all Karen could think about was how the color stood out like a sore thumb amidst a sea of beige and soft pastels. Even the flowers in front of the house appeared to fade in comparison to that startling bright shade. Karen's mind raced with comparisons of what she considered appropriate colors for houses. This coral was far too bold for her taste, and she felt an urgency to take action. She pulled out her notebook, ready to document what she saw as a breach of neighborhood harmony, convinced that it was her duty to report this shocking change to the HOA promptly. With her notebook in hand, Karen hurried home, her mind buzzing with thoughts about the coral house. She couldn't shake the image of its brightness from her mind. As soon as she reached her living room, she sat down at her desk and began to write a letter to the HOA. Each word felt like a powerful reminder of her mission to uphold the neighborhood standards. In her letter, Karen carefully detailed her complaints. She described the eye-searing color that clashed with the soft beiges and gentle pastels of other homes in the area. This bright coral, she wrote, not only disrupts the aesthetic harmony but could also set a precedent for future choices that may further diminish the neighborhood's charm. She imagined other homeowners following suit, painting their houses in equally bold colors, and it sent shivers down her spine. After she finished her letter, she sealed it in an envelope and made her way to the community center where the HOA meetings were held. Delivering the letter felt empowering, as if she was standing up for all the residents who shared her love for classic home designs. Karen knew that some of her neighbors might think of her as too strict, but she believed it was worth it. The sight of that coral house would not go unchallenged. She was ready to face any backlash, convinced that she was acting for the greater good of her beloved neighborhood. After Karen submitted her complaint to the HOA, the homeowner, Mike, felt a wave of frustration wash over him. He had put so much effort into choosing the coral color for his house, believing it brought warmth and cheer to the neighborhood. Instead of receiving compliments, he faced criticism from someone who seemed more concerned with enforcing rules than embracing creativity. Determined to defend his choice and reclaim the joy he felt in his home's transformation, Mike decided to take action. He recalled hearing about a color-matching expert who could help him find a shade that would not only reflect his style but could also serve as a clever rebuttal to Karen's harsh comments. With resolve in his heart, he reached out to the expert. When the color-matching expert arrived, Mike explained the situation and pointed out the vibrant coral painted on his house. The expert examined the color closely and discussed various shades that could soften its bright appearance without losing its charm. However, as they talked about colors, Mike had an idea. Why not use the same bold shade but turn it into a playful challenge? Inspired, he asked the expert if they could match the coral to something unexpected, like a specific color found in everyday life. As they began discussing options, Mike realized this could be a fun way to turn the situation around, showing Karen how personal expression could thrive in their community while gently reminding her of her own eye-catching choices. The following week, the color-matching expert arrived at Mike's house, ready to find the perfect solution. With a keen eye for detail, she inspected the coral paint, noting its vibrant hue under various lights. As she looked around, Mike explained how he wanted to maintain a playful spirit while also addressing Karen's concerns. "Let's see what we can do with this," the expert said confidently, pulling out a set of color swatches. She began to examine different shades, comparing soft pastels to more muted tones that might please a broader audience. However, as they flipped through the samples, something caught her attention. One particular shade seemed to resonate with her. "Wait a moment," she exclaimed, holding up a bright pinkish coral sample. "This matches almost perfectly with what you have. But it also reminds me of a lipstick shade I've seen before." Intrigued, Mike encouraged her to elaborate. As they continued their search for matching colors, the expert suddenly had an idea. "What if we replicate that coral tone but also playfully link it to that lipstick? I think I remember seeing it on a lady in your neighborhood, a very vibrant color." With newfound inspiration, they set off to find that specific lipstick shade. After some searching, they finally found a match that was indeed identical to Karen's favorite lipstick color. Mike couldn't help but chuckle at the twist of fate. This bold choice could turn the tables on his neighbor and show her just how much influence she had unwittingly wielded over his home. As Mike and the color expert continued their project, he thought about how to capture the evidence he needed to make his point. He realized that having a visual representation of Karen's lipstick shade would strengthen his case. With a plan forming in his mind, he decided to take a casual approach. The next day, he set up a friendly coffee get-together with some neighbors, including Karen, at a local cafe. It was the perfect opportunity to observe her without drawing suspicion. As they chatted and enjoyed their drinks, Mike made sure to keep an eye on Karen. Throughout the conversation, she occasionally touched up her makeup, and he noticed her applying that vibrant lipstick shade he had come to recognize. When Karen stepped away briefly to use the restroom, Mike seized the moment. He discreetly pulled out his phone and snapped a quick picture of her lipstick tube sitting on the table, its bright coral color standing out against the neutral backdrop of the cafe. He also managed to capture a photo of Karen wearing it as she laughed with other neighbors, completely unaware of his intentions. Feeling pleased with himself, Mike saved the images for later. This little snapshot not only showcased Karen's love for bold colors but also provided him with the evidence needed to highlight the irony of her complaints about his house. He was ready for whatever response she would have when she saw her own style reflected back at her in his home. With the photos of Karen's lipstick fresh in his mind, Mike was ready to make a bold move. He contacted the color-matching expert once again and shared the images he had captured. They agreed that they could perfectly replicate the bright coral shade, which not only matched Karen's lipstick but also embodied her flair for vibrant expression. Excited by the prospect of this playful challenge, Mike decided to fully repaint his house in the exact shade that mirrored Karen's favorite lipstick. He felt a thrill at the idea of embracing her style in a way that would turn her complaints back on her. The color expert mixed the paint, ensuring it was an exact match, and soon enough, Mike had cans of vivid coral paint ready to bring his vision to life. As he rolled the brush across the walls of his home, he felt a sense of satisfaction with each stroke. The color brightened the house, making it stand out even more than before, just as Karen had claimed. It felt empowering to express himself through this choice, taking something meant to criticize him and transforming it into something uniquely his own. Once the job was complete, Mike stood back to admire his work. The house now sparkled in the sunlight, radiating a cheerful energy that he believed would fit perfectly with the spirit of the neighborhood. He couldn't wait for Karen's reaction when she realized that her own favorite shade had made its way into her critique of his home. A few days later, Karen took her usual stroll around the neighborhood, eager to check on any changes. As she turned onto Mike Street, her heart sank when she saw the house. It was painted in the same bright coral color she had complained about, and it was even more eye-catching than before. The sun glinted off the fresh paint, making it look almost garish against the backdrop of the more subdued homes nearby. Karen felt a surge of outrage as she stood there, hands on her hips, shaking her head at what she considered a blatant disregard for community standards. "It's even worse than before," she muttered to herself, unable to believe that Mike would choose to make such a bold statement after her complaints. She felt an overwhelming frustration wash over her, convinced that she had to take action once again. Without hesitating, Karen headed straight for her home office to draft another complaint letter to the HOA. As she wrote, she detailed how the color was still far too bright and claimed it disrupted the neighborhood's aesthetic harmony. She couldn't understand how Mike could flaunt such an eye-searing choice with complete disregard for everyone else's taste. Once her letter was finished, Karen sealed it with determination. She was ready to make her case again at the next HOA meeting, firmly believing that it was her duty to restore balance to their neighborhood, no matter how much Mike may have enjoyed his new paint job. As Karen prepared her second complaint to the HOA, Mike knew he had to be ready for her response. He understood that this time, he needed solid evidence to back up his decision to paint his house in the vibrant coral shade. With a determined mindset, he took action to gather everything he would need. First, he scrolled through his phone to find the photos he had taken of Karen at the cafe, her lipstick tube prominently displayed. The snapshots not only showcased her favorite shade but also served as an amusing reminder of how her preferences had inspired his choice. He saved these images, organizing them carefully in a dedicated folder labeled Evidence. Next, Mike reached out to the color-matching expert who had helped him with the renovation. He requested copies of all the receipts and documentation from their color consultations. This paperwork would demonstrate that he had made a thoughtful choice in selecting the coral paint and acted within proper guidelines when updating his home's exterior. As he gathered these materials, Mike felt a sense of satisfaction wash over him. He appreciated how this light-hearted competition with Karen was turning into a fun game rather than a bitter feud. With everything ready, he mentally prepared himself for the next HOA meeting, where he would stand by his paint choice and bring attention to the delightful irony of it all. It was time for Karen to see how creativity and personal expression could coexist in their neighborhood after all. The day of the HOA meeting arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Karen entered the room with her head held high, ready to present her case against Mike's coral house. She felt confident that her complaints would resonate with other members who shared her views on maintaining neighborhood aesthetics. As the meeting progressed, Mike listened intently, waiting for his turn to speak. When Karen finished detailing her concerns about the brightness of his home, he stood up, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. The room went quiet as he prepared to unveil his evidence. "Thank you for your time," Mike began, a smile creeping onto his face. "I understand that many of you share Karen's feelings about maintaining our neighborhood's appearance. However, I'd like to present some evidence that might change your perspective." With that, he displayed the photos of Karen's lipstick on a projector screen for all to see. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the vibrant coral color was revealed. "This is Karen's favorite lipstick shade," he explained, "and I had it color matched to paint my house." He continued by sharing receipts from the color-matching expert and elaborated on how this choice was not just a whim but a thoughtful decision inspired by Karen herself. The twist left everyone in stunned silence, slowly shifting from their initial support for Karen to curiosity about Mike's artistic choice. Mike concluded with a light-hearted tone, reminding everyone that perhaps personal expression could coexist alongside their community standards. As he sat down, Karen's face turned crimson, realizing the irony in her complaints had backfired spectacularly. As Mike concluded his presentation, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. HOA members exchanged glances, some stifling laughter while others looked genuinely puzzled. It was a unique situation that blurred the lines between personal style and neighborhood aesthetics, and they were captivated by the unfolding drama. "Did he really just do that?" one neighbor whispered to another, chuckling under her breath. Meanwhile, a few others leaned in closer, intrigued by the connection between Karen's makeup choices and Mike's paint job. The absurdity of it all made them reconsider their views on community standards. One member raised a hand, unable to contain her amusement. "So you're telling us that this house color is literally inspired by Karen's lipstick? That's creative." Her comment elicited giggles from the crowd, lightening the mood even further. However, not everyone was amused. A couple of members still clung to more traditional views about home appearances and expressed confusion over whether such personal expressions should influence neighborhood decorum. "But what if everyone becomes too bold with their colors?" one man pondered aloud, scratching his head. Mike took the opportunity to address these concerns directly. He explained that diversity in personal expression could enhance their community rather than compromise it. As he spoke, he saw curious nods among several attendees, who began to rethink their stance on individuality in home design. It became clear that this light-hearted confrontation had opened up a broader discussion about creativity and acceptance in their neighborhood. With the meeting drawing to a close, many left feeling entertained and enlightened, while Karen found herself reflecting on her own approach to community standards. After the HOA meeting, Karen walked home in a daze, her mind racing with thoughts about what had just happened. For so long, she had been convinced that her opinions were only about maintaining the aesthetic harmony of their neighborhood. However, as she replayed Mike's presentation in her mind, something began to shift within her. She realized that her stringent views on home decor had unintentionally stifled individuality and creativity among her neighbors. While she valued tradition and uniformity, it dawned on her that expressing oneself was just as important. The idea that her own makeup preferences influenced Mike's paint choice both intrigued and unnerved her. Could it be that the vibrant coral which she once deemed eye-searing actually held a charm she hadn't recognized? Karen paused mid-walk to reflect on how easily someone could dismiss another's creativity in favor of conformity. This process of self-examination began to soften her perspective. Maybe rather than complain about differences, she could embrace them and learn to appreciate the diverse expressions around her. As Karen reached her front door, a sense of resolve washed over her. She decided to write another letter, but this time not to the HOA about complaints. Instead, she would suggest forming a community gathering, an event where everyone could share their ideas on personal style and decoration. With this new outlook, Karen hoped to foster acceptance and bring their neighborhood closer together while celebrating the individuality that makes it special. As the sun set on her neighborhood, Karen sat on her front porch, absorbed in thought. The events of the HOA meeting lingered in her mind, and she felt a profound sense of change within herself. Previously, she had viewed home decor as a boundary, an absolute rulebook to maintain order and uniformity. Now, however, she started to appreciate the beauty of expression that came with individuality. The bright coral color of Mike's house, which she once found outrageous, began to represent something new to her: creativity. It dawned on her that each unique choice made by a neighbor contributed to the richness of their community. As she considered her own experiences with makeup and style, she recognized that everyone had a different story to tell through their preferences. With renewed conviction, Karen realized that acceptance was essential for a thriving neighborhood. It wasn't merely about following rules, it was about cherishing differences and encouraging others to express themselves freely. Her heart warmed at the thought of organizing that gathering, envisioning lively discussions where neighbors could share their ideas and showcase their unique styles. No longer would she be a self-appointed guardian of conformity. Instead, Karen felt excited about nurturing a culture of creativity and understanding. She saw potential in embracing both personal tastes and collective harmony, eager to pave a path toward a neighborhood that celebrated diversity rather than criticized it. With this revelation, Karen felt ready to take the first step forward into this newfound perspective.